Angela Kelly was not born into royalty or fashion. She was born in 1957 in Liverpool, England, into a working-class family. Her father worked as a crane operator and her mother was a nurse. They lived in council housing and life was never easy. Angela didn't grow up dreaming of palace halls or royal gowns. She spoke with a strong Liverpudlian accent, which she kept proudly throughout her life. That accent, her roots, and her humble beginnings became part of her charm. It made her real. Before she ever picked out a single royal outfit, Angela worked as a housekeeper. In 1992, she was working at the British Embassy in Berlin. That same year, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip came to visit the embassy during a state visit. Angela had no idea that this visit would change her life forever. During that visit, Angela had a brief conversation with the Queen. It wasn't formal or planned. Angela mentioned that she would be returning to England soon. That simple comment, said in a casual conversation, opened a door she never expected. Just a few months later, Angela was offered a job as one of the Queen's dressers. It was a quiet and surprising beginning to a journey that would take her deep into the heart of the British royal family. By 1993, Angela was officially working inside Buckingham Palace. She didn't waste any time making a name for herself. In just 3 years, she was promoted to senior dresser. That was a big deal, especially because she took over after the passing of Bobo MacDonald, who had been the Queen's longtime dresser since childhood. Angela stepped into a role full of history, expectations, and pressure, but she made it her own. Angela didn't just lay out clothes or pick colors, she observed. She listened. And slowly, she earned something very rare in royal circles' trust. The Queen didn't let people in easily, especially not outsiders. But with Angela, it was different. They laughed together. They traveled together. Angela became a quiet, trusted figure in the Queen's daily life. She even moved into the palace. To be closer to her work and to the Queen, their bond was special. Angela once said in an interview, "I love the Queen and everything about her. She has allowed me to get close to her, and she has trusted me for a long time." That trust wasn't built overnight. It took years of loyalty, respect, and understanding. In a world of strict rules and formal titles, Angela stood out by simply being herself, kind, honest, and loyal. That's why eventually she was given the formal title Personal Advisor and Curator to Her Majesty Jewelry, Insignias, and Wardrobe. But her role was more than a title. She had become a part of the Queen's inner circle. Someone who understood not only the Queen's style, but also her heart. The woman behind the Queen's iconic looks, Angela Kelly, became the hidden force behind the Queen's elegant and carefully chosen wardrobe. To the public, Queen Elizabeth was always perfectly dressed, pastel coats, matching hats, and sparkling brooches. But those looks didn't happen by accident. Angela was the person who made sure every outfit told a story. She didn't follow fashion trends or chase designer labels. Her focus was on legacy, symbolism, and message. Every hat, every glove, every pin meant something. If the Queen was visiting a foreign country, Angela would study the culture, the weather, and the traditions. She made sure that the outfit honored the people and the place, all while keeping the Queen comfortable. For example, if the Queen was scheduled to visit Kenya in November, Angela would start planning the outfit months in advance, sometimes as early as spring. Angela shared in her book the other side of the coin that bright colors were not just a preference for the Queen. They were a necessity. The Queen had to be visible in large crowds. Whether people were standing far away behind barricades or watching on TV, they needed to see her clearly. So those bright yellows, purples, and blues were part of a strategy. Angela also paid close attention to the Queen's comfort. One touching detail she revealed was how she broke in the Queen's new shoes. The Queen spent hours on her feet during public events, and new shoes can be stiff and painful. So Angela would put on the Queen's shoes herself and walk around the palace to soften them before Her Majesty ever wore them. It was a quiet act of loyalty. No one asked her to do it. She just did it because she cared. Angela's workspace inside the palace was more like a royal fashion library. Each outfit was recorded with photos, fabric swatches, and handwritten notes. This system helped make sure the Queen was never seen in the same outfit at 2 major events. But that didn't mean they threw clothes away. Angela often updated or repurposed existing coats by changing buttons or adjusting hemlines. She also used fabrics from the past, some dating back to the 1960s. Beautiful silks, lace and brocades stored in the royal archives were turned into new, modern outfits. This showed that even as the Queen moved through the 21st century, she carried the past with her. Angela blended tradition and modernity with skill and pride. She also prepared accessories, lining up options for brooches and hats and offered the Queen thoughtful suggestions instead of commands. Every detail mattered. Angela once said that her work was never just about clothes. It was about respect, culture, and communication. She took that job seriously every single day. One of the most surprising and unforgettable moments in Queen Elizabeth's public life happened during the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics. The whole world was watching. Billions of people expected a grand show filled with British tradition, maybe music, maybe theater. What no one expected was for Queen Elizabeth to appear in a James Bond film. The short film showed actor Daniel Craig playing James Bond, arriving at Buckingham Palace. He is led through the palace by staff until he reaches a desk. There, in a surprising twist, the Queen turns around and says, "Good evening, Mr. Bond." It was the real Queen, not an actress. In the film, she and Bond then board a helicopter and appear to parachute into the stadium. The parachute part was done by a stunt double, but when the real Queen arrived in the royal box moments later, the crowd erupted in disbelief and joy. This moment showed the world a new side of the Queen, one that was bold, playful, and very modern. It made people smile and feel connected to her in a different way, and the person who helped make that moment happen? Angela Kelly. She had seen the Queen's sense of humor in private and knew she had the spirit to do something unexpected. Helped make the moment possible by handling not only the logistics, but also the Queen's wardrobe for the scene. That single event became a symbol of how Angela wasn't just a dresser. She was a creative force who shaped some of the most iconic royal moments. Angela's role in the palace wasn't always in the spotlight, but it was deeply important. She kept secrets. She kept the Queen comfortable. She kept traditions alive through fabric and thread. And she built a friendship with one of the most famous women in the world, based on trust and mutual respect. Now, at the age of 67, Angela is finally sharing her story not to seek fame, but to honor the woman she served. Her book and interviews revealed that she still holds deep love for Queen Elizabeth, even after her passing. Angela's voice adds a new layer to the story of the Queen, one that reminds us of the small acts of care that shaped a global figure. Behind the glamour, behind the diamonds and royal titles, there was a woman who needed someone she could trust. Angela Kelly was that person. She helped the Queen shine, not just through her clothing, but through her confidence. And now as Angela opens up about those quiet years inside the palace, the world gets a rare and touching look at the Queen, not just as a monarch, but as a human being. Angela's legacy is one of humility, service, and love. She showed that even behind the most powerful people are those who help them stand tall. And now, we finally get to hear her voice. For many years, Angela Kelly quietly worked behind the scenes in Buckingham Palace. She was not a royal by blood, nor did she live in the spotlight. But she played one of the most important roles in Queen Elizabeth II's daily life. Angela was the Queen's personal dresser, but her duties went far beyond clothes. Trusted companion, a calm presence, and a silent supporter during some of the most important and emotional moments in the Queen's life. Now, at the age of 67, Angela has finally opened up and shared her story, a beautiful, personal look into the private life of one of the most admired women in the world. It began with a surprising moment during the 2012 London Olympics. Director Danny Boyle had a bold idea to include Queen Elizabeth in a short film with actor Daniel Craig as James Bond. Most people thought the Queen would politely decline such a dramatic and unusual idea, but Angela didn't think so. She believed this would be a perfect chance for the Queen to show her sense of humor and connect with younger generations. She encouraged the Queen to do it, and it turned out to be a moment the world would never forget. The Queen surprised everyone by appearing in the fun segment and even pretending to jump out of a helicopter. This wasn't just a funny moment. was a symbol of how Angela helped the Queen step outside of royal traditions without ever losing her dignity. Angela knew the Queen better than most. The relationship was built on trust and laughter. One of Angela's favorite memories was a harmless April Fool's joke she played on Her Majesty. She had found a very realistic-looking stuffed kookaburra bird and placed it outside the Queen's window. Then she told the Queen that a rare bird from Australia had flown in. The Queen stared at the bird with a curious look on her face, and then, with her classic dry humor, said, "You're joking." Instead of being annoyed, the Queen burst out laughing. It was a simple joke, but it showed the special bond the two women shared. Most people would be terrified to play a prank on the Queen, but Angela could do it because they were close like friends. Angela was not just a staff member. She was someone the Queen let into her private world. In a palace full of rules, formal events, and traditions, Angela brought comfort and a sense of calm. She made sure the Queen looked perfect for her. Every appearance checking that earrings matched the dress, shoes were broken in, and the famous royal hat sat just right. But more importantly, she helped the Queen feel human. Just before public events, Angela would say something to make her laugh or feel relaxed. The cameras saw the elegance, but they never saw the woman who fluffed the Queen's coat, offered quiet support, and stood just behind the curtain. She was the invisible helper who kept royal tradition alive, moment by moment, with warmth and care. One of Angela Kelly's biggest tasks came in 2004, when Queen Elizabeth gave her a very emotional and important job. Made in 1841 for Queen Victoria's oldest daughter, had been used for over 60 royal babies, including Queen Elizabeth's own children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. But after more than 160 years of use, the gown had become so delicate and fragile that even touching it felt dangerous. The Queen asked Angela to create a new version that would look and feel just like the original. It wasn't about making a costume or just copying an old design. It was about honoring royal history, keeping tradition alive, and making sure future royal babies could continue wearing something deeply meaningful. Angela understood how important this was. She knew it. It was not just a sewing project, it was a sacred responsibility. She and her team carefully studied every inch of the old gown, paying close attention to the lace, the silk, the stitching, and even the way the fabric flowed. They found the lace in Italy, known for its fine, beautiful materials. One problem, the lace looked too new, didn't have the soft, faded color that the original gown had developed over time. Angela didn't panic. She used an old English trick, tea bags. That's right. She brewed strong Yorkshire tea and gently soaked the lace in it. The result was stunning. The tea gave the fabric a warm, creamy color that matched the aged look of the original gown. It was a creative, respectful way to bring history back to life. And when the new gown was finally ready, it was breathtaking. The first royal baby to wear it was James, Viscount Severin, the youngest grandson of the Queen. In 2008, since then, the gown has been worn by many royal babies, including Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis, and Archie Harrison, the son of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Each time the gown was seen in public, it reminded everyone of a tradition that had lasted for nearly 2 centuries, all thanks to Angela's dedication. But Angela's story didn't end there. The COVID-19 pandemic began in early 2020. The royal family's life changed overnight. Public events were canceled. The palace gates were closed. Everything became quiet and still. Queen Elizabeth stayed at Windsor Castle with a small group of staff known as the HMS Bubble. Angela Kelly was one of them. She gave up months of her life, stayed away from her own family, and joined the Queen in isolation to keep her safe. Inside that bubble, Angela did everything. She wasn't just a dresser anymore. She became a housekeeper, a cook, a hairdresser, and most importantly, a friend. She helped the Queen prepare for video calls, setting her famous curls with great care and precision. The grand royal life had paused, but Angela remained by the Queen's side, doing all she could to make Her Majesty feel comfortable and cared for. Life inside the castle during the pandemic was quiet and emotional. The days were long, and the Halls that were once full of footsteps and voices were now silent. But in that silence, Angela and the Queen grew even closer. They shared tea in the afternoons. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in peaceful silence. Then, in April 2021, the Queen faced one of the hardest moments of her life, losing her husband of over 70 years, Prince Philip. The world saw the Queen sitting alone at his funeral, masked and socially distanced. But behind the scenes, Angela was there, helping her prepare, offering support, and standing by her side, as she had done for so many years. These are the moments the public never saw. These are the memories Angela holds dearly, moments of quiet strength, deep sadness, and true friendship. After the lockdown ended and life began to return to normal, Angela did something no royal aide had ever done before. She decided to share her story not through rumors or gossip, but through a memoir called The Other Side of the Coin. It was her way of honoring the Queen, sharing the quiet beauty of royal life, and showing the world what it truly meant to serve one of the most respected women in history. Angela Kelly's memoir was filled with honesty, love, and respect. She didn't write it to become famous. She wrote it because she had spent years beside the Queen, laughing with her, working with her, mourning with her hand. She believed those stories deserved to be told. Wrote about what it was really like to travel with the Queen, to prepare her for events, to watch her smile quietly at private jokes, and to sit beside her during the hardest days. Through Angela's words, the public got to see a new side of Queen Elizabeth, a human side. A woman who was strong, funny, graceful, and kind. Angela's story reminded us that behind the crown was a person. Beside that person was another. A woman who cared deeply, worked humbly, and stood silently in the background so the Queen could shine in the spotlight. Angela didn't just create outfits. She created memories. She didn't just preserve royal fashion. She preserved royal history. And now, at 67, as she reflects on her journey, she finally lets the world know what it truly meant to walk beside a queen. For more than 20 years, Angela Kelly had a job like no other. She wasn't just a fashion advisor or wardrobe assistant. She was the woman Queen Elizabeth II trusted with the most personal parts of her daily life. Angela helped the Queen dress, chose her outfits, folded her scarves just the way she liked them, and even wore her shoes to break them in so the Queen wouldn't have to. This close relationship was built quietly behind palace walls, away from cameras and press. But at the age of 67, Angela made a bold decision that surprised everyone. She told the world what it was really like to work for Queen Elizabeth. And even more surprising, the Queen gave her permission to do it. Angela's book, titled The Other Side of the Coin, the Queen, the Dresser, and the Wardrobe, wasn't your typical royal tell-all. It wasn't about gossip or scandal. Instead, it told the story of a queen that people rarely got to see, a queen who laughed, who had daily routines, and who sometimes surprised even those closest to her with spontaneous decisions. This was not just about crowns and ceremonies. This was about the real woman behind the title. Queen Elizabeth allowed Angela to share her story while she was still alive, which had never happened before in royal history. Usually, books like this are written only after a monarch passes away or after retirement. But Queen Elizabeth trusted Angela so deeply that she said yes to sharing their experiences with the world. Angela knew the risk, speaking openly from inside. The royal family could easily be seen as breaking an unspoken rule. For generations, royal staff have stayed silent about their roles. They were expected to do their job and never speak publicly about anything they witnessed inside the palace. But Angela wasn't doing this to break rules or become famous. She did it because the Queen wanted people to understand who she really was, more than just a royal symbol. Angela's book took people into the Queen's private world, showing her kindness, humor, and even her preferences about clothes, colors, and daily habits. Angela knew the Queen's moods, when she wanted to chat, and when she just needed someone to be there quietly. This was a side of Queen Elizabeth the public never saw. Angela didn't take this lightly. She was careful, respectful, and always kept the Queen's dignity at the heart of her writing. One powerful part of the book was the story of a very personal wish the Queen had kept to herself for years, a wish to be photographed in a more relaxed and informal way. She didn't want to be seen just as a formal ruler in perfect dresses and royal hats. She wanted people to see her as a woman simple, real, and human. Angela made that happen by arranging a private photo shoot where the Queen stood with her hands tucked casually in her pockets. That small pose spoke volumes, showed the world that even a monarch could break tradition, if only a little, to be more relatable to the people she served. It was a moment of quiet bravery from both women. Angela Kelly's book gave readers something that newspapers and news channels never coulda. Real and personal view of Queen Elizabeth's everyday life. Most people only saw the Queen during big events like royal weddings, state visits, or television speeches. She was always perfectly dressed, standing tall, waving to crowds. But through Angela's words, people learned about the woman behind the formal smile. They found out how much attention the Queen paid to small details like which brooch to wear on which day and why some outfits carried special meaning. The book talked about her love of certain colors, her dislike of others, and her clear opinions. About what worked and what didn't. These might sound like small things, but they helped the public understand that Queen Elizabeth was thoughtful, organized, and deeply connected to her role. Angela also shared some sweet and funny moments. One story was about how the Queen enjoyed April Fool's Day and would sometimes take part in harmless jokes. There was even a time when the Queen laughed at a wardrobe mishap, showing that she didn't always take everything too seriously. Angela's stories gave readers a sense of warmth. People were surprised to learn that the Queen had such a practical, even frugal side. For example, she often reused old fabrics stored in the royal stockroom instead of ordering new ones. That showed how much she respected tradition and valued what she already had, even though she lived in a palace. She wasn't wasteful, and she didn't expect luxury just for the sake of it. One of the most touching parts of the book was about the Queen's trust in Angela. Angela didn't just work for her, she was by her side during quiet moments. Sometimes they didn't even talk, they would just sit together in silence, and that was enough. That kind of relationship is rare, especially between a monarch and a member of staff. But Queen Elizabeth saw Angela not just as a worker, but as a trusted friend. That's why she allowed Angela to share their story. Even knowing that not everyone in the royal household would approve. Not surprisingly. Some members of the royal staff were unhappy with the book's release. They believed Angela had stepped beyond her role. They worried it might set a new, uncomfortable example for other staff members. Some feared that the mystery and privacy of the royal family were being chipped away. But Angela made it clear that she wasn't breaking trust. She was honoring it. Everything she wrote had the Queen's approval. She had no interest in becoming a celebrity. Her goal was simple: to share the Queen's human side with people who had only ever seen her from a distance. When the book hit shelves, the reaction from the public was overwhelming. It quickly became a bestseller. People felt a connection to the Queen they had never felt before. They saw her as someone relatable, a grandmother, a woman of strong values, someone who made small, meaningful choices every day. The book was praised for its honesty, kindness, and elegance. Angela didn't reveal palace secrets or private arguments. Instead, she focused on moments of grace, laughter, and love. She helped people understand that behind all the royal titles, there was a real person who had lived a long and full life filled with duty, humor, and heart. Angela Kelly's memoir. The Other Side of the Coin was more than just a book. It was a gift from one woman to another and from both of them to the world. Through carefully chosen words and respectful storytelling, Angela helped peel back the curtain just enough to let people see Queen Elizabeth in a new light. A monarch, yes, but also a mother, a friend, and a woman with a gentle spirit. Private photo shoot, especially the image of the Queen with her hands in her pockets, became a symbol of quiet change. It told people that even the longest-reigning monarch in British history was still open to showing her true self, even if just a little. That photograph was casual, yet powerful. It stood as proof that Queen Elizabeth cared deeply about how she connected with her people. Angela's choice to share that side of the Queen was brave. She walked a careful line between truth and respect, and in doing so, she created something lasting. Her stories showed us that royal life isn't just about rules and ceremonies. It's about moments. The little ones like a smile, a favorite color, or a quiet joke that stay with someone forever. The Queen trusted Angela not just to dress her, but to understand her. And Angela honored that trust by telling her story in a way that felt both personal and royal at the same time. For those who read the book or watched stories about it, the Queen suddenly felt closer. She wasn't just a face on a coin or a figure at a parade. She became someone people could imagine having tea with. Someone who might chuckle at a joke or remember a special brooch because it reminded her of someone she loved. Angela's words turned a distant monarch into a real person. And that is what made the book so special. Now that you've heard this remarkable story, how does it change the way you see Queen Elizabeth? Did this softer human side surprise you? Let us know in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next royal story that brings history to life in a whole new way. Angela Kelly's story is more than just a rare look inside. The royal wardrobe is a touching journey through loyalty, friendship, and trust at the highest level. What makes her story so powerful is not only her years of dedicated service, but the unique bond she shared with Queen Elizabeth II, one that allowed her to witness the Queen not as a distant ruler, but as a deeply human woman. The Queen's decision to let Angela speak, to let her publish such personal stories while she was still alive, speaks volumes about the level of confidence and affection they had for each other. For most of the world, Queen Elizabeth was always seen through a formal lens. She was the image of discipline, order, and tradition. But Angela helped us see something more. She revealed a queen who could laugh, who could be playful, who appreciated simple joys and small acts of care. She wasn't just the head of state, she was a woman with favorite colors, personal habits, quiet strengths, and a desire to be remembered as a person, not just a symbol. The book, The Other Side of the Coin, stands as a quiet revolution. It doesn't shout, doesn't break royal secrets, but it gently pulls back the curtain to let the light in, showing moments that would have otherwise stayed locked away behind palace doors. And in doing so, it brings Queen Elizabeth closer to the people she served for over 70 years. Angela's brave decision to write this book, despite knowing there would be criticism, allowed the public to meet the Queen in an entirely new way. The Queen was not untouchable. She was real, grounded, and often quietly humorous. That powerful photograph of the Queen with her hands tucked in her pockets was more than just a snapshot. It was a message, soft but clear signal that behind all the pageantry was a woman who could still surprise us. A woman who, even after decades of duty, found the courage to show her true self in the end. Angela Kelly didn't just dress the Queen, she helped undress the myths. She helped reveal the heart behind the crown. And thanks to her honesty, courage, and care, the world now has a richer, more meaningful picture of Queen Elizabeth. As we look back on this story, we're reminded that even the most iconic figures in history are made up of small human moments. And sometimes, the most lasting legacy isn't found in public speeches or grand ceremonies, but in the quiet truth shared between two people who simply trusted each other. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey. If you found this story moving, we invite you to subscribe and stay with us for more remarkable stories about the lives behind the titles, the people behind the power, and the truth behind the traditions.